You start off as the founder trying to do everything, and you've got a way you want to do things. Maybe just pause and breathe.
You have the superhero syndrome, and the only thing that does is one thing and one thing only. It is slow down the growth of your business.
Worked in the big corporate world, these big businesses.
Management is a skill set.
I'm going to show them how it's done.
Someone who does the process needs to own the process.
I think we could go on forever here because it's such a great topic.
You can learn a lot in a very short period of time.
Hi, I'm Richard Hill. Welcome back to Agency Intensive. Today, I'm talking with Mads Singer, agency trainer and management consultant, who's helped hundreds of teams move from founder-led delivery to repeatable, scalable operations, the business of SEO. We walk through the practical moves that actually free up your time, hiring the right first managers and building simple processes that scale, and the marketing channel that reliably finds the kind of clients you actually want to keep. We cover a lot in this one, hiring and onboarding your first hires who will remove you from the day-to-day delivery. And we talk about common scaling mistakes and how to avoid them. Stick around in this one as there is a lot of real actionable steps you can use. Now, before we dive in, I just want to quickly thank our sponsor, Aristo Sourcing, for sponsoring this episode. We've been using Aristo Sourcing for my team building needs, from customer service, executive assistants, admin support, to digital marketing specialists, and they're a great partner for agencies looking to scale without the recruitment hassle of the more traditional methods. We decided to partner with them after seeing firsthand how their team have helped me and my teams grow efficiently over the past 18 months with reliable, skilled professionals who actually deliver. If you're ready to build your dream team, head to aristosourcing.com and find out more. We put the link in the description so you can go straight ahead and check it out. That being said, let's dive straight into this episode. Hey Mads, how we doing?
I am fantastic. How are you, Richard?
I'm very well, thank you. Now, this is an episode that I wanted to do for some time. I think, I meet so many SEOs that are either usually brilliant SEOs, but maybe not doing as well as I believe they should be doing. And there's usually some common threads there. And I met Mads probably about 4 years ago now, isn't it? On a roof terrace in Saigon, of all places. And it became very apparent that Mads is the man that helps a lot of SEOs and business owners to sort of to structure their businesses in certain ways to become successful, and obviously work with dozens and dozens and dozens of SEOs, some very, very well-known SEOs. So yeah, had to get you on the show to talk about sort of the business of SEO rather than SEO for a change. Yeah. So I think before we get into the nitty-gritty, it'd be good for you to introduce yourself, Mads, and introduce yourself to the listeners, how you got into the world of business management, consultancy, and helping business owners scale.
Yeah, for sure. So I used to work in the corporate world, Xerox and IBM for many years. Actually loved working in the corporate world. It's very different from most people, but I really enjoyed it and loved it. I ended up leaving the corporate world in about 2013 to go and venture out on my own. But back to SEO, I actually started my first affiliate website in 2007, which is nearly 20 years ago.
Nearly.
So while working in the corporate world, I was doing some SEO on the side as a little side hustle, and that was a lot of fun. But fundamentally left the corporate world in 2013, 2014 type of thing, and initially started out doing management coaching and consulting, so helping business owners, both managers in larger companies, but also business owners in smaller businesses, really how to be a good leader, right? So how to manage people the right way, how to get the right out of people, how to hire the right people, how to put the right people in the right seats, all of that good stuff. Delegation, one of the very big things that I work a lot on. And then about a year and a half later, I started an outsourcing company called Aristo Sourcing, where we hire in South Africa primarily, and a good bit in Philippines as well. But for the last few years, South Africa have been sort of the primary area for us to hire.
Yeah.
Then I run a SEO conference, obviously the best in the world, obviously.
Of course.
Which take place every year in Saigon in Vietnam. And that is, so many people ask me why the location. and it's very simple. When you force people to fly halfway around the world to come,
Yeah.
it means only really great people come. So the quality of the audience at our event is absolutely next level. We have some of the best people from the US, North America, from Europe, from Australia, from everywhere in the world.
Yeah.
That's something it's hard to do in the UK. Like if you go to something like Brighton SEO, there's a lot of people, quantity
Yeah. Yeah.
wise, a lot of people. But the goal for us with running our event is not getting the most people, it's getting the best people. And
Yeah.
that we're able to do based on where we have the event.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think that's basically how we met. I was sat here in the UK doing a bit of doom scrolling, probably nearly 4 years ago, or 4 SEO masteries ago, so 3 years ago, and I saw an advert from your business partner. I now know that's SEO conference in Saigon. I'm like, I always wanted to go to Saigon, so I literally had a bit of diary juggling, and I booked it, and then obviously arrived and then met you and the various people that now some very, very good friends and very good relationships. And you mentioned Aristo sourcing, one of your companies. Obviously, we do a lot of business with you guys there as well. We've been building a team in South Africa now for just over about 18 months with you guys, and so yeah, just going to these events, I think there's a lot of stuff to unpack there. But just going to events as an SEO, as a business owner, some of the things, just chance conversations that can happen, just whether it's having a chat in the hall of the conference, or going for a meal with 2 or 3 what will be strangers, and then finding out, oh, actually, and just a little snippet from one of those conversations. And yeah, here we are gearing up to go to the next SEO Mastery in a few weeks' time. So yeah, looking forward to it.
yeah.
Yeah. So obviously worked in the big corporate world, these big businesses, these big budgets, and big headcount, and I guess similar situations, but bigger things to deal with, a lot more budgets and so forth. But and then transitioned into working with sort of medium-sized enterprise, and obviously sole traders that are growing, and big aspirational sort of businesses. But I think, I'm keen to talk about, we're sort of the business of SEO. We've got a lot of very, 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 very talented people come to these events, for example. I'm usually sat next to somebody, and that usually makes me look very, very stupid because they're very, very smart SEOs. But then it's sort of, have a similar sort of thread of conversation, where they're sort of getting great results for their clients. They're doing quite well, as SEOs, but they're not necessarily scaling their business. What's sort of happening there, and what sort of shifts do those people need to be focused on?
Yeah, I mean the biggest thing is that, and this is often the detriment of experts, is when you're really good at something, you focus all your time and energy on it.
Yeah.
Because you're familiar with it, it's comfortable, it's what you like, right? So I always use the analogy that many SEOs, they know 99% of SEO, and they're trying to learn like 0.1% more. They think that where they're lacking is, if they just get a magic hack, then suddenly they'll be rich, right? But reality is they know so much SEO, but their business skills or their leadership skills are down here, right? So the whole point is that, like my management training course is literally 2 days, and for most people that changed their world, because the difference between having very little knowledge to having a good bunch, it's such a difference, right? Like when you know most things, like small tiny increases, they're hard to come by. Right, but when your skill level is relatively low, you can learn a lot in a very short period of time. Right. So the whole focus for me when I talk with people and at events in general is, spend more time on the business side of things, spend more time on the leadership side of things, spend more time, I mean, even HR, right? Most people come to me and said, I'm bad at hiring. I'm like, how many people have you hired? 2. I'm like, well, okay. Right? No wonder. Never done something, And then I asked them the second question, which is, what have you done to get better? And they're like, well, nothing. And you're like, that's a bit like taking the SEO analogy is, you take a website, you put some words on it, and it's not ranking, and you're like, well, I'm bad at SEO.
That's it. I'm no good at SEO. Yeah.
Well, correct. But,
Yeah.
that's where the learning begins. And the whole thing is business requires many skill sets. When you look at any consistent business, like 99% of business in the world, they operate through a marketing channel, a sales channel, operation channel, and finance channel, right? Literally 99% of companies in the world are structured the same way. Sales, marketing, operation, finance. Those are four big areas. When you're doing SEO, you're typically focused on operations.
Yeah.
Now, if you have a business that's only doing operations, you're not doing very much,
Yeah.
right? Just like sometimes there's salespeople who start a company and all they do is sales, and they don't know how to deliver, they don't know how to take care of money, but it's the same issue, right?
Yeah.
If you want to succeed in business, you need to either acquire the skills or bring people on board who have the skills that you're lacking.
Yeah.
But I would say as a business owner, you definitely need to acquire some of those skills to a certain level, right? So you need to have a good idea about sales. You need to have a good idea about marketing. You have to have some idea about finances.
Yeah.
Like if you don't have any clue about finances and you're trying to run a half decent business, you're going to kill yourself from not knowing and not understanding anything about finance, right? Because I had a good friend who literally broke the neck of his $2 million e-com store because he had no clue about cash flow. And suddenly the bank account was empty and there was a very big container on the way to the US and he did not have money to survive for a month.
Yeah.
And the business literally went bankrupt. And it wasn't like he wasn't stupid, but he just didn't understand finance.
Yeah. So we've got these four buckets in effect, and usually, the SEOs in this instance are very good at the delivery and maybe the operational, as we'll call it, of delivering that thing. But then maybe, and quite often, they then deliver it really well, but they're trying to polish this 2-3% to get this unbelievable, but maybe a month passes by and they deliver that work. Oh, we've now got no work, or the pipeline is very, very slim. We haven't done any marketing events and so forth, but we've done this really good bit of work over here. But if we've done a 95% job on the work, which is still brilliant, it's still a 10 out of 10 almost, and had some time that day, to spend on sales, marketing, cash flow, money, making sure that we are just very aware and educating ourselves. So for maybe the listeners that are listening now that are, they're on the smaller end of agency, there may be 4 or 5 people, they're doing really, really good work. They're doing a couple of $100,000 a year, depending on what currency and where you live in the world, a couple of £100 in real money. But what sort of things should they be looking at specifically then to sort of go, right, well, we want to go from 200,000-300,000 a year, to break that magic number, that million a year, which I think was a number that, many years ago I was obsessed with, the £83,334.40, I think it is. I might have got my math slightly off, but that 83K obsession, what sort of things, I mean, you've touched on them there, but if you were to give like a quick hit roadmap of, right, you need to do this, you need to do this, what would you say?
Yeah, so I think most of the people who are sitting in that situation, the key things to figure out, and this is really relevant for every business, but the key thing to figure out is what is your marketing channel? That there's a lot of people who says be everywhere. And reality is, as a single business owner, if you try and do SEO and social media and YouTube and ads and blah, 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 you're going to do one thing and one thing only. It is break your neck. First of all, you're going to be doing a lot of things. And because you're doing a lot of things, you're not doing them very well.
Yeah.
So what I say for every business, go and find your marketing channel. And I don't say that in plural. I say that in singular. You find one channel that get you to the million.
Yeah.
Right? For my businesses, so for Aristo Sourcing, for example, that you're familiar with, where an outsourcing company, that channel was events.
Yeah.
Right? Now, here's the thing. There's not a right or wrong channel.
Yeah.
There's maybe channels that won't work or won't work for you, but the whole thing about marketing it is picking a channel and just keep going at it
Yeah.
till you crack it. Right?
Yeah.
A lot of people, they run Facebook ads for 5 minutes and then say, "Oh, Facebook ads doesn't work," and you're like, "Well, they probably do. You might
Yeah.
not be able to make them work,
Yeah.
but it
Spend
doesn't mean they
500
don't
hours
work."
on them, they'll work. Yeah.
Right. So that's the thing, right? So with Aristo, that have grown purely to a multi-million-dollar business purely from networking. That was our initial channel. I go to a lot of events, so for me, when I left the corporate world, again, I understand the value of networking, right? I spend a lot of time at events now, and it was very simple for me to see that, particularly in the early days in the business, building the trust over one-on-one relationships is so much easier and simpler, at least it was for me, than doing it with 7 billion cold emails, right? Again, it can work.
Yeah.
Some people are really good at making it work. But for me, the simplest way, the simplest way I could go out and see what is it really people want, what is it really
Yeah.
they struggle with, what are really the questions they ask me, was networking at events, right?
Yeah. I think
And
that's it.
if we
Like
place,
you're really comfortable with that, aren't you? With networking and events and speaking. And I guess, I think what you're saying, pick the channel that, pick a channel, but obviously different people have got different strengths. People like to be more visible than other people. Some people maybe not don't like going to events, and a lot more shy and nervous around that, and have whereas other people are fantastic writers, and there's some great large SEO agency owners I know that sort of semi-dominate LinkedIn with their stories and case studies, and there's some funny bits in there, and but you might not see them out of their environment, but then you see other guys doing lots on YouTube, and so it's trying to find something that that you're comfortable with, where you can get the leverage as well. It doesn't have to be the most yeah, but I think events is one. I'm big for events as well, because you're sort of speaking to many rather than that one or two people that you might do if you're just trying to get people onto one single call. Or yeah.
and the big thing for me is if you're going to events in the world of SEO, we like just going to SEO events. I'm always saying do a few SEO events a year, but then go where your customers are,
Yeah.
right? Like I had a client in the US who was just working with roofers, and they'd been working, I think they'd been in business for about 6 years. And their growth was really, really slow for all the reasons we just talked about. And the guy only worked with roofers and had never had the notion of going to a roofing event. I told him, like, he was just like myself, he was an introvert, right? But basically what I told him is chat with your different best clients, find some of the best ones and say, what events are you going to? And literally tag along, right? Now he 3x'd his business in the following 12 months.
Yeah.
Because he went to roofing events. I think he went to 2 or 3, and he was the only guy talking about SEO. None of these other guys had a clue. Now, many of them had been, let's call it, scammed, or they felt they had been scammed or cheated or tricked by people. The second he showed up in person, the second they met a person, they built connection, whatever, the relationship was a totally different level. He got so many new clients in a very short span of time, and he could actually deliver results. So that was a good example of a way. But exactly as you say, the whole thing is find your way, right? My good friend Julian Goldie, he's killing it on YouTube. I have friends that are killing it on LinkedIn. I have friends that are doing fantastic on ads. My good friend Gary Wilson built a link building company just predominantly on ads, right? So you can build it up in any way you like, but my experience is that success comes from finding one channel and doing really exceptionally well. Because realistically, you don't have the capacity to do more than that when you're a small business.
Yeah.
Like when you start having 40, 50 people and the likes, you have more resources. You can maybe get resources to help with some of these other channels. But when you have 5 or 10 people, you're generally not capable of doing that.
Yeah. No, brilliant advice. Pick a channel. and it can be the one that you're more comfortable with, obviously, and then just go deep, deep, deep. In a great example of going to an event in the industry that you're focused on, and naturally that event, that room is full of people, or it's got a lot of people that very likely could be your customer, but if they're not, they're still connected to those customers as well. So you've got opportunities to speak at these events, get to know the organizers of other events. Brilliant. Yeah. Go to events is if you're comfortable with that, it's a great one. So now I'm just going to pause this one for a second with a quick note from our sponsor, Aristo Sourcing. Now, when it comes to building high-performing teams overseas for my agency, Aristo Sourcing is my go-to partner. Whether you're looking to scale your operations, reduce costs, or access world-class talent without the hassle, they've made it incredibly straightforward for us. I've personally been working with them now for over 18 months and can thoroughly recommend their services firsthand. If you're ready to build your team and take your agency to the next level, head over to aristosourcing.com to find out more. Now, let's get right back into this episode. We've talked there about that sort of, 4 or 5 people, that sort of size agency, but agency intensive is very much about building the sort of multi-million pound agencies. So usually, not always, that takes more headcount. We like to think, that one of the magic numbers is 100K, pounds per headcount. So 20 people doing 2 million quid a year is a number we throw out there. So let's say you're an agency owner that's not there yet. You're still down to 4, 5, 6 people doing a few $100,000 a year, but you're trying. Your aspiration is to get to this couple of million quid a year. What are some of the key hires that you think they need to be focused on along the way, and what does that sort of org chart look like?
Yeah, so I keep going back to what I said in the beginning: sales, marketing, operation, finance. So when I start a new business, when I hire in the early days, I think of a business in those 4 buckets.
Yeah.
And the thing is, most people, they start by hiring these random people in different spots, but I'm always thinking of those 4 buckets. When I'm hiring for someone for customer service, I'm thinking, okay, I'm hiring an operations person. Longer term, let's say this is my first customer service person. Let's say that person number 5 in the company. But I'm constantly looking at, okay, what is the ability for this person to grow in the business, right?
Yeah.
Is this a role where I need the person who can really grow into success? Do I need this person to become a manager? Do I need this person to whatever, ideally over time?
I do well. Yeah.
Like my first 5, 6 hires in any business, I don't hire people that I don't see future potential in. Because if you're growing a business, you need to have people around you that can grow with the business. And the first 5 or 6 people really help set your culture, right? And culture, I know it's for small companies, that's very difficult to understand, but it's critically important for success, right? So the culture in general of a business is shaped by those initial people. Culture is not what you put on a piece of paper and say, hey, we are friendly and we are kind and we are all this. Culture is when your 5 or 6 first hires come in the morning and sit down, wherever they're in an office or working remotely, what do they do? That is culture. Do they show up on time? That is culture. Do they work hard? That is culture. Do they deliver on their goals? That is culture. So those things are all culture, and they're driven by the early hires, right? And this is one of the key things, and this is not just delegation, but one of the key things in the early days of a business. You want to spend plenty of time with the people you have. If you have a team of 4, 5, or 6 people right now, and you don't have the time to spend with them, you're doing the wrong things. I don't care if they're located in India or China or in the UK or wherever they are. If they're 40 hours a week or 30 hours plus a week resource for your business, you want to invest time with them every single week.
Yeah.
That is the most important thing, because if your team around you is not growing and you're staying busy, you're doing it all, you end up with, you have the superhero syndrome, and the only thing that does is one thing and one thing only. It is slow down the growth of your business.
Yeah. I think that's where most people struggle. That's where they need the support. They need, they need the training. I think it's like we're going back to what we said already. They're good at the doing, they're doing the thing and, whatever it is, the SEO, the this, the ranking, the so on and so on. But then we mix some people into the mix, and that's very unique. And those people are very unique, and you've got a way you want to do things, but maybe the new people don't automatically do that way. Not that they have to do it that way, that you want them to do it that way, but they're obviously there to contribute and to help you do it better. So it takes some adjustment as a founder, doesn't it, to really just pause and breathe and let people be a little bit, but not, at the same respect, you want things done in a certain way, but you want to give them enough room to be able to also contribute. And you'll go, actually, that guy's a way better SEO than me. Now I've actually just stepped back for a second, and actually we're delivering twice as much work and I'm doing less time on that. I'm having time. So it's giving yourself that almost just shut the fuck up for, maybe let other people do. But that's a challenging piece, I think. I see it. A lot of the people I meet, when we come out to, SEO mastery, they're like that people bit. What would you say to, I think SEOs typically are, how can we put it, a lot more introvert, that like to sit with their maybe headphones on doing the do. But when it comes to the people thing, how do they adapt to that maybe? Is there any advice you would give them on that?
Yeah, honestly, it's a skill. So SEO is a skill, management is a skill. Like Matt Diggity, like most people, when I started working with Matt, his first sentence to me was, I don't really want to deal with people. Can I just hire someone to do it? Here's the thing. 12 months later, he's like, I don't want to do SEO. I just want to manage people.
Yeah.
Now, here's the difference. When you learn how to get shit done through other people so you don't have to do it, no matter how much you love what you're doing, that feels great. And I can promise you, sitting writing meta descriptions for the 7,400th time is not fun.
Yeah.
If you find it fun, you're insane.
Yeah. We joke about, funny you say that. Do you know the Karate Kid film where it's like wax on, wax off, wax on, wax off? Meta descriptions is our equivalent, was the equivalent of that. When somebody new comes in the business, we wax on, wax off for like the first 3 months. And then we're like, okay, you managed to get through that. That was what we used to do. Not anymore, but yeah. Yeah. So you got to crack on. You got to do it. So obviously, the people bit, but I think let's change direction a little bit and talk about process frameworks. I think, the magic word SOPs, there's standard operating systems, processes, sorry, standard operating processes. I think, the SEO particularly is changing quite a lot. You could say that about a lot of things, but, what's your advice on sort of getting consistent work done in a consistent way and how to use SOPs in an agency?
So I'll tell you what all the gurus are telling you, and then I'll tell you why it's wrong. So what all the gurus are telling you is to sit down, figure out a process, write it down on a piece of paper, say, hey, Richard, here's a process, go do this thing. And then when you're done that with one, you do it with the next, and you do it with the next, and you do it with the next. And then that's how you spend your life as a business owner. And I can tell you that is not the way you want to spend your life as a business owner.
Yeah.
100%. When you hire your first staff member, second, third, is it a good idea to do some SOPs? It can be. My philosophy is very, very different. My philosophy is I bring people in. I might show them how to do something. I want to give them ownership of what it is they're doing. And then I want to delegate the responsibility to them for creating and keeping the SOPs up to date. So my philosophy is very simple. Someone who does the process needs to own the process. If the person doing the work is not owning the work, like I was a manager in IBM, right? At one point managing, let's just say when I managed 100 people, like I don't know how many thousands processes I was responsible for. I can promise you there was no way on planet Earth that I could make sure they were all up to date. Right.
Yeah.
It just doesn't happen. Right. And that's like if you're building a business with 2 processes, okay, great. But if you're building a business, you're not.
Yeah.
Right? So there is processes, there is workflows, there is stuff. So again, if there's a skill, if there's a knowledge I have, I love sitting down. I love showing someone how to do things. I mean, Loom is amazing.
Yeah.
And then I don't give someone a Loom and say, create a process of this. I give someone a Loom. I say, do this process 20 or 30 times, become very comfortable with it, and then document how you're doing it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But as a business owner, my time in the company is the most valuable. Me spending time sitting down, documenting stuff and so on, that is not where my time is best spent.
Yeah, it's pain. A lot of pain. So somebody else, the person that's doing the thing, documenting it after they've got very, very proficient in it, and then are they then responsible?
One of the big challenges that many business owners have, they say, my staff never come and suggest how we can improve the process.
Yeah.
Because they have no ownership.
Yeah, you haven't maybe told them.
Let's say your staff member, Richard, built the process, right? If Richard thinks, oh, this could be done better, what do you think Richard does?
Yeah. Change.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
So you've got to have that dialogue with your team. So it goes back to the comms, that probably number one skill of communicating with them, giving them ownership, and if they find, as we know, obviously things in the last, it's always moving, isn't it? But the last year with AI and so forth, the way we do things and the different tools and AIs we may use now and layer in to speed up and to improve. If we haven't changed our SOPs in 12 months, there's a major problem. But obviously making sure that the people that are on the front line have got that flexibility or ownership to do that and have responsibility for that. Yeah, I do recall sort of passing the SOPs to some of my team, and then they spent, this is going back, it's a lot of pain, a lot of pain, a lot of pain, a lot of time, a lot of hours. You feel really chill. We've done the SOPs, they're brilliant, and then about 3 months later, it'll be like, right, did somebody new starts and or somebody that's been here a long while. Oh, why have we done it that way? Oh, I don't know. And then they haven't even been given the SOPs, or they weren't even aware there was an SOP, or we don't even use the system that the SOP is based on. We don't use SEMrush, we use 8refs or whatever it may be, and people aren't even aware there are SOP, things like that have happened to be completely transparent over the years. And so having that ownership piece, yeah.
I've helped a good few people, getting their business ready for sale and stuff like that. And like the amount of times where I'm like, show me your SOPs. And they start showing me documents that was updated 5.5 years ago, right?
Yeah.
I don't even need to ask if they're up to date. I know very much they're not.
It is I think you could go to most agencies. It is probably one of the most changing every industry now, but SEO very much so. The different tools that are coming out, the different ways to do things. It's a tricky one, but still, giving ownership to people. So we've talked about 4 or 5 people. We talked about 20 people, and a few ideas there, but building from getting to that million, hitting that 83,333 reoccurring, you hit the mill and you think, do you know what? That's pretty good. And you might have spent however many months, years usually to get there. And then things can start to get very exciting because, potentially your SEO retainers are no longer $500. They're $5,000 a month, $10,000 a month. Half a dozen clients soon leads to 2 million quid a year, 3 million quid a year, and so on. So, how does the sort of leadership skills, leadership challenges change around scaling from 1 to 5 million. I think, as we've said, you start off as the founder trying to do everything, and you do everything. Then you maybe hire, get used to hiring and get comfortable with having the right people in the right seats. But then, a 4 or 5 million pound business turnover a year, very, very different to, a £1 million business. What would you say about that?
Yeah, so there's typically a couple of steps, right? So throughout the growth of an agency, there's typically 3 different steps. So I tend to say 0 to 8 or 0 to 10 people.
Yeah.
You can kind of, you don't want to do it, but you can kind of get away with growing to that level and kind of managing everybody a bit like spider in the middle, right?
Yeah.
So you can, I've seen people maybe get to 12 people or something like that, managing them all. And obviously that's not the way to do it, but you can.
Yeah.
Now in that stage, you have a very skinny team. You have communication is quite straightforward because you're communicating directly to everyone, right? Then you have the next step. So from that step, so from 10 up to about 25, 30 people, there's another step. And in that step, that's when you first start putting managers in place. Most of the business owners still know everybody, but they start putting managers in place. They start learning how to delegate and so on. And that step that requires a lot of management growth and development. Then you have between 25, 30 to somewhere between 50 to 60. And in that step, what happens is you get to a level where, one, you often have multiple layers. And that means that communication becomes a totally different game. So you need to learn to communicate through other people. You often don't know the people at the bottom of the organization. And there's not a gap, but there's a big difference in how you manage. And company communications become so different when you get to that level. Now, above that level, obviously there's still hurdles, there's still growth spurts and so on. But above that level, it is just about management growth, really. It's about team and management growth, right? But those are kind of 3 steps that people often struggle to get through. So you often see a lot of people that are either stuck at sort of 10 people, they are stuck at 25 to 30, or they're stuck at the 50 to 60. And that's most agencies, most companies, honestly, goes to those hurdles, and they can be stuck. If they don't get help, they can be stuck in those areas quite a while.
I can put my hand up. That's exactly where we were. I think 10, 12, we get to 13, 14, then we bounce back down to 10. We couldn't quite crack that. And I think, as you've identified there, was that layer, getting the right people in those management seats that could then take control, really, or take and push those areas, whether it was in that instance, it was sort of, for us, it was an operations manager that could take all the delivery. So then at the time, I could then focus more on the sales and marketing. So then the sales and marketing had an uplift because I wasn't involved with any clients. And then it's then, right, okay, where are the other departments? Right, we need a head of, getting a good head of department for the particular services, and then getting a really, really, really strong finance piece. So we got, in our instance, about 5 years ago, we went with it was an event I went to an event, a mastermind actually that I was involved with, about 8 people, and one of the guys owned a accountancy firm just for creative and digital businesses. And when I met him, it was like, oh my God, this guy's insane. And he became our accountant, and his team now do, and that sort of unlocked that finance piece that maybe we needed more advice that we didn't know, and then and then it started to move, and I've seen it with a lot of friends that own agencies, getting these right people in the right seats, these managers that can manage. So when you say, or when you discuss with that manager, they can then communicate that back down the line. In a obviously communicate it, but also see it through and make sure that things are getting done. Obviously, it's not always smooth, with a few hiccups there. But yeah, managing 10 people and then pushing through to that 25 plus, it just starts to get very exciting, doesn't it? Because I think that's where the big moves, and then you're able to hire, when you've got, when you're doing, reasonable money, you've then got the cash in theory, to then, when you go to these events and you meet these insane SEOs, you can hire them. You don't have, you could employ them, which is quite an interesting thing, really. You see these guys on stage that maybe, they are brilliant SEOs, but maybe they're looking also for, maybe a change as well. So you can hire, which is what we've done. We've hired a lot of speakers to work for us and with us, and, in different guises. And then that accelerates the delivery. Some of your speakers, are doing some work for us at the moment, from your events, things that my team wouldn't be able to do. And, so you filling the puzzle in and mixing it up with different people you meet. But yeah, I think it's hit that million. I think things do start to change. That's what I've seen,
It's a different game. It's a different game. I'd say it's not, from my experience, it's not always about the million, because sometimes you can have, I mean, an SEO may be a good number, but I see many different kind of business, and sometimes it's not about the million. Sometimes it's about, the quantity of people really plays a lot into the game. But the ability to hire better people, right? Like the more you pay, the better people you can acquire. And as I say, like when I go to SEO events, the smartest people rarely make a lot of money. You can find some really, really brilliant SEOs working for $5,000 a month.
Yeah.
And it's not like they're happy, they love what they're doing. But again, if you're running a business, you probably don't want to work for $5,000 a month.
Yeah.
So
it's literally I feel like the dumbest person in the room every other night when I'm at these events. not maybe not quite, but in terms of if you start talking, deep. Specialism on, one of the, whether it's link building or whatever it may be, and you think, we'll maybe hire you, Okay. So I think, we've touched on quite a few things there. We've started, the sort of 4 to 5, you've gone from founder to 4 to 5, you've gone to 10, then we've scaled past and looked at some of the different plateaus and to push through. And, we've probably made it sound all very easy, but we know the reality, it's quite different. If somebody's listening now, an agency owner, an SEO agency, what would you say to them about sort of implementing change in the next sort of 30 days? What exactly should they be looking at doing to grow their agency?
So what I would say, particularly, this is not so much 4 to 5, but that's a little bit bigger. A lot of the time, because again, as business owners, a lot of us don't walk into business with management experience. So very often where I see the biggest jumps is when you've promoted people into leadership role and management roles that aren't necessarily experienced managers or haven't got training or education, is invest in them.
Yeah.
The amount of companies, and this is not just about me or my specific training, but the amount of companies I walked into and literally spent 2 days with them, and you just see gigantic change after it.
Yeah.
But a lot of the time, right? Sometimes people don't have a ton of resources. Sometimes as simple as starting to get some books for your leaders and managers.
Yeah.
But you have to think of, if someone gets promoted into a management role, let's say I'm a great sales guy, and suddenly my boss is like, hey man, I want you to be the sales manager. I'm like, okay, great, that sounds exciting. And I show up on the morning, I'm like, okay, now I'm the manager.
I've got people.
What does that mean? Right? Like, what do I do? What's the next step?
Yeah.
It's a totally different skill set, right? So one of the big things you always say, the best sales guy is not necessarily the best sales manager. And while that is true, that is often because it is not the same skill. Someone who can learn to be an exceptionally good sales guy can learn how to become an exceptionally good manager.
Yeah.
But it's not the same, right? And it's the same with engineers. If someone can learn to be a great engineer, they can learn to be a great manager, right? Management is a skill set. If you can learn to be a great SEO, you can learn to be a great manager. Yeah. But it's a different skill set. So look at the people you have in leadership and management roles, and look at how can you help them become better leaders and managers, because that is your number one hack. It's not about your processes. It's not even like everything else. If you have leaders in your business already and they become better leaders, your life gets significantly easier.
Yeah. You are, I mean, just to add to that, I've just had a month, well, in November, I was in the office 3 days. And that's because of that sort of system, the getting people in the right seats, having, different team members. I know we've spoken about this before, but when I go to these events, for example, and I come up with, and maybe, I see this thing, oh, that's brilliant, but we connect that to that. It's even, wow, we can take this little idea over here and add it to what we do over here. And oh, that's amazing. But then my thought and my immediate thought process is, who is going to do that? Not how do I do that? Who are the people that either we've got them or I've just met them at a dinner or they've spoken on stage. Right, I need to go and have a chat with the guy who just spoke about that thing. How are we going to then hire him? And it doesn't have to be full time. It could be, we're doing project work with quite a few of the people that we both know, but also hired, quite a few people as well, full time. So finding those people, who are the people that are going to do the thing, and then, like you say, it can start just with a book. There's a book where you learn, but then there's nothing like a bit of face-to-face training as well. Big believer in, spending, whether it's putting your team, usually yourself to start with, but then those managers, investing in those managers with training, with courses, with 1-2 days of training, ad hoc. Are you going to commit to somebody to come into the business for 6 months and do a day a month and get that consistency and train? Because I think the challenge is also you can go and read a book, for example, or buy an expensive course, but it's the practical element I think is quite usually missing. So then you want to reinforce that learning with some practical, right, well, half a day a month or so many hours a month, we're going to get the team together and do this, reinforce this, whether it's a sales process, whether it's an SEO piece, and so on and so on. Yeah, brilliant.
Yeah.
Okay, so final couple of questions, Mads. I think we could go on forever here because it's such a great topic. Just scaling businesses, full stop. But SEO agencies, if you were starting an SEO agency from scratch, you were like, right, I'm going to show them how it's done. I've trained all these agencies. I've built these businesses. I've built a lot. Obviously, you built a lot of your own businesses to multi-million-pound businesses. But if tomorrow you are starting the Mads Singer SEO agency, you probably come up with a more creative name than that, but
possibly.
and your target is to go, right, from a standing start, I want to hit £5 million a year in 3 or 4 years. Knowing everything you know about agencies, the people that you've helped scale, what would you do?
Number one, what I do with every business is figure out what is my one process. And what I mean with that is that most agencies bump into this issue where they try and do everything for everyone. And that's painful. And that is often what takes most people a couple of years to figure out what should we actually be doing. So by starting out, by identifying a process and saying, what is the one thing we do? So a lot of people hear niching down, they think of it as like, okay, plumbers.
Yeah.
But niching down is not about a vertical per se. It is about a scalable, repeatable process that you can execute again and again and again and again.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So what is that?
Yeah.
All right. Now, let's take an example. So let's say I want to go out there and I want to do, let's take something wild. Let's say e-commerce SEO. That sounds pretty insane, right?
You can't do that. You're bad.
So let's say I go and start an agency and I say, okay, I want to start an e-com agency because I know a lot of e-com people or whatever. What's the process? So I could nail it down in a few different ways, but the key thing is, what is the framework? So that's often a system. So what, do I do Shopify, or do I pick something that very few people pick? Do I go out and become the Magento e-com guy?
Yep.
The only one on the planet because the framework sucks. No, I didn't say that. But do I become the Magento e-com guy?
Yep.
Right. I will bet you can go and create a $5 million a year business as a Magento e-com business.
Yeah.
So figure out that process. Figure out exactly what is it we do and exactly what is it we deliver. So what is it that customers can expect when they work with us? And this is not social media. This is not all this. This is breaking down, looking at the process of SEO and saying, what exactly is it we're going to do? And how can we do it repeatedly over and over and over again? So, for example, it's finding, okay, well, it's an e-commerce business, so they have category pages. How do we structure a product process for doing category pages? How do we set up a process for doing product pages? How do we do all of this stuff? But it's basically building out that one process that is repeatable and scalable.
Yeah.
And then what you do is, in the beginning, it's often yourself or one or two people who are doing this entire process. And then you simply start breaking it down. You says, okay, first step is customer onboarding. Bob's going to do that because Bob's great with people. Second step is start with an audit. Pete is going to do that because Pete's good at that. And over time, you can break down the process more and more and more, and you can add in more people. So organizations exist for the specialization of labor, which fundamentally means that you want to take your process, you want to break it down as much as you possibly can, because for two core reasons. One, it makes it way easier to scale and grow. And two, it makes it way easier to replace people. One of the big issues you'll see in many successful agencies is that if one person leaves and it's the wrong person, they're effed.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? When you're building out your process and you're breaking it down and you're giving individual people responsibilities for different pieces, it makes it significantly faster to train new people. Yeah. It makes it significantly cheaper to hire people because they need less of a skill set.
Yeah.
And fundamentally, your ability to scale, like if you take the framework, you can sometimes go and scale, you can go and double your business in a month or two. Because it is scalable and it's repeatable.
Yeah.
That is the right way to
specialist. Yeah. And if one piece, if one person leaves, it's just one piece out of so many, and that's trainable, scalable. So you're not relying on one person to do too much. Yeah.
So people try, and when I work with most agencies, initially they're always like, I want to hire a replica of myself so I can do twice as much. I'm like, no, you don't want to do this. You want to do that, right? Hire people who are specialists at individual segments of what you're doing. And here's the thing. Anytime as a business owner, you says, I'm the only one that can do it, or no one else have the skills to onboard a new client or come up with this strategy, you have not defined your process.
Yeah.
And if that is the case, I'm not saying you can't make decent money, right? But you're fundamentally building a business that if you pass away and die, the business is worth nothing because there's nothing left.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So if you want to build a business that's sellable, that's scalable, that's growable, it is build that process, identify that process, and fill in the gaps in the flow. And the more you grow, the smaller the individual pieces become.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like at some point, link building might be one guy, whereas at some point in the future from that, link building might be broken down to you have a guest post guy and you have a PR guy and you have a different.
Yeah.
So it just breaks down. The process just breaks down to smaller and smaller pieces the more you grow.
Yeah. Yeah. Brilliant. And then the marketing is absolutely focused on maybe a channel, like you said at the beginning, but it's a very clear message, isn't it? You are the Magento SEO guys. We know that stuff inside out. Sounds just like my business. Yeah. Fabulous. So, Mads, it's been a pleasure. I like to finish every episode with a book recommendation. Do you have a book to recommend to our listeners?
Oh, I do. Okay, you'll love this title. First, Break All the Rules.
Oh, that's a new one. Yeah.
The guy, it's written by a guy called Marcus Buckingham. Surprisingly, it's about management. But I love the book. I love the title, and it's
brilliant. Well, we'll link that up in the show notes. I've not heard of that one. I think that's first for quite a while that hasn't that I've not heard of. So yeah, we'll get that in the show notes, and we'll get that ordered for ourselves as well. Well, thank you for coming on the show. For those that want to find out more about what you do, more about the training and the events, what's the best way to reach out or find out about your services and your events?
So luckily, I'm the only guy in the world called Matt Singers. So that means that it's relatively easy to find me on social media and so on, right?
Yeah.
I got probably three good websites. So mattsingers.com is for management.
Yeah.
Aristosourcing.com is if you're looking to hire amazing people. And then we have the SEO Mastery Summit.com, which is if you're looking to go to the world's best SEO conference.
Yeah. And I can attest to all three, to be fair. Yeah, it's not very often that happens. So, we'll see some of our listeners, hopefully in a few weeks' time in Saigon, in Vietnam, at the SEO Mastery Summit. Thanks for coming on the show, Mads. I'll see you soon, very soon.
My pleasure.
Cheers. Bye. If you enjoyed this episode, hit the subscribe or follow button wherever you are listening to this podcast, so you're always the first to know when a new episode is released. Have a fantastic day, and I'll see you on the next one.